because I always start too soon. Welcome to the 2-month review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one giant book, break it down section by section, analyze it, talk about it, have fun with it. This season, the 10th season, is based on Duck's Newburyport by Lucy Ellman. And I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books. And I'm joined as always by Brian Wood, author of the short story collection Joytime Killbox, available now from BOA Edition.
Hi, Chad. Thank you for having me on. That was a great commercial, man. Boom. I'll take it.
Somebody pointed out that we've talked about Joytime Killbox for weeks and weeks and weeks and months on this podcast. But we've never actually told anyone what it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. we just referenced that you're the author of this book coming out. Do you want to give like a short pitch for your book real quick? And I know that you were just on TV, right?
Yeah, locally. Yeah, it's
you mean in the important market.
Well, where it matters.
Where it matters.
Rochester, in focus. Yeah.
Oh wait, let me make a joke for you first. Dubravka Ugresic was on live with Evan Dawson when he used to do TV when she came here, and she went on and answered his questions, and it was like a 10-minute segment, 5-10-minute segment, and she came up and she's like, I'm glad that housewives have TV.
Oh dear. Wow. Okay.
It's like it was really like not entertaining to her.
Well, they told me this morning. Well, this will air on Sunday at. We've moved our time slot from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. because
that's nice.
Who wants to watch television at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning? Like, good Lord.
Unless it's a soccer match.
All of that demographic is dead now. So we're gonna go to 10 a.m.
and every child is just watching Baby Shark on repeat endlessly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, so what was the segment about, or what was the thing? And what's your book about?
Just about the book release. It comes out on the 15th. But no, it's a collection of 9 stories. They're all kind of offbeat, kind of darkly humorous, and just it's kind of the awkwardness of modern living. Is basically just kind of addresses that in various ways.
It's very funny.
Yeah, I have a story that has a talking animal in it, which I wrote purposefully to make fun of all those stupid talking animal stories that you would get like in your MFA program.
I have a thing. We will never publish a book with a talking animal.
They are the worst. So I put a talking animal in it that never talks.
Nice.
But everybody says it's a talking animal. Like, yeah. So if you're into that sort of thing, pick it up. It's thin. You can read it really fast, unlike the books we do on this show.
You can do it in seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like this is just like a pregame. Like your book is like a pregame warm up to.
And I think it'll be available everywhere, but Costco, because Costco won't buy a small book. They have to buy fat books.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. There's a good talking animal in Thomas Pynchon's Against the Day. So my whole anti-talking animal books bit might be suspect. There's an exception that proves the rule. That's the way you use it, right?
There was one talking animal short story that I really liked. It was by I can't remember his name, but the short story collection is called God is Dead. Really original title. God is dead, and apparently God comes down and takes the form of a refugee, but then gets shot. So God dies, and then these hyenas eat his corpse, and then they can talk now because they're imbued with God's power.
Wow!
So I was like, all right, that's cool. If you have hyenas eat God's corpse, they can talk in the story. That's allowed.
That's
totally
fair.
Allowed.
That's fair. So what did the woman ask you about your book when you were on there?
Oh, I totally froze up because I don't know if she's ever read. Well, obviously she hasn't read the collection. Like, there's no way. But. So she goes, so this is a collection of 9 stories. That is a lot of stories. So many stories to put into one book. How? And I'm thinking, like, that's not very many at all.
Oh my God.
All right, let's continue. How is that different? I mean, I know some stories are going to be shorter than novels, but how is it different writing a story than novels? And I was like, yeah, it's shorter.
Oh my God.
So I was just like, how is this gonna go? Okay, let's just do this. No, it was fine. It was fun.
It's always fun to be on there. Is it with Norma Holland?
No. Emily. I forget her last name. It's Emily. I think she's new.
Okay, Norma, I think used to do it, but
she's super nice, and I'm very thankful to have the platform. So I should.
Yeah.
But it was just a bizarre question to try to answer. Like so many stories, 9 of them. Oh my goodness. How do you get 9 stories in a book?
I was just trying to look because Shirley Jackson comes up a bunch in this section and is like one of my big obsessions of the moment, so I was like, is resonating real good for me. But the
I
lottery,
mentioned her in the interview just now too, because
Oh,
she was
really?
asking about the short stories in Rochester, and so I mentioned Shirley Jackson was briefly in Rochester. And
so I think we could actually talk a lot about Shirley Jackson for here because there is a lot that makes sense with this book. One thing that I was trying to look up, but I think the lottery and other stories has 21 or 22 stories in it. So
many stories.
You're a slacker.
Yeah.
You're not even trying over there, buddy.
Like 9. I just stopped at a nice round number. 9. That works nice.
Well, I approve of 9 because I use every time that I have to put together a list, I put together 9 for baseball. So it's like 9 innings or 3 times 3. Everything works out perfectly. So every list I ever create is centered around the number 9. I've never told anyone why, but that's it. So Shirley Jackson did live for a brief time in Rochester. She went to school here. She hated it. Like she said that at points that there was like her professors wanted her to do very uninteresting things like go to class. So she got expelled from the University of Rochester. But one of the funniest parts in her biography that I've been listening to that's written by Ruth Franklin and highly recommend. It's really great. I'm not even like halfway into it because it's very long and very comprehensive. But it's pretty interesting. But she talks about how when she was in Rochester, her and her friend used to hang out downtown because she went to the girls' school on Prince Street, and they hang out downtown on Main Street at like a cafe, and they would sit there and Shirley had a quote that was something like, "We sat there for 3 hours and didn't see a single interesting face."
Oh,
like
right.
She thought Rochester was like the bleakest, worst place to be. But one thing that's interesting is, so the book, she moves away pretty quickly and like comes back to visit her parents every so often, but there's like not a lot of Rochester stuff. But related to the lottery and related to her later life, when they were living in North Bennington and she was writing her first novel and all of her short stories and becoming like a known writer, she was very, very aware of like how ostracized they were from the rest of the community and how like mean-spirited people were underneath their surface, and like how she was sort of alone in that space in some ways. And I feel like that resonates with the narrator of Ducks Newburyport a bit. Like that idea, like so when she comes up here, I don't remember what page it is. I've got it marked somehow. She talks about like her having to earn more money than her husband, and like and talks about how her husband was having all these various affairs, and she did. He did like a lot. And that's in the book quite a bit. Like he would write to her about like when before they really got married, but they were like together or whatever, about all the different conquests he wanted to have during the summers and girls that he was trying to lay while he was like living in various houses. So that's
his name was true. His name was Hyman, right? She mentions it as well. Like, of course that's his name. Like,
yeah, I know. It's kind of almost too perfect, but it's cool. It was cool to see Shirley Jackson come up, and it does feel like that her sort of the Shirley Jackson viewpoint of one that's like removed and aware of like the hypocrisies and the like of middle class life and of like how things can be sort of on the edge of sinister sort of does fit this. I mean, it's not the same by any means, but this woman's viewpoint of like, you know, trying to do all this various stuff and balance all these things and being aware of like this surrounding badness of sorts, like the open carry people, like all the poisons that we've dumped in the environment, all the traditionally big bad things that exist, she's aware of.
Well, it makes sense being so. If I read right, I think Shirley Jackson was from the Bay Area, like San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's moved across the country, a completely different scene, different vibe, but it makes sense where if you're a stranger someplace, you're going to have these kind of more keen observations than somebody that's a local or is integrated. And it reminds me of when your author just came for History a Mess.
Yeah.
She was mentioning what it was like to be at the airport hotel and watching people order meatloaf and like just all these like observations. Like it was funny because like my father was there and he was like, that's an interesting way to like say, like he's not from Rochester, he was visiting from out of town. He's like, that's usually when people come and give a talk, they just, you know, their introduction isn't just like shitting on the city that they're visiting, but that's what he's like, that's kind of what it felt like. And And then she was trying to mention, like, no, I don't mean this to be mean. It's like, well, everything you're saying is kind of mean spirited.
But you're laughing as you do
was,
it, so it's okay. It's okay.
But I was laughing the entire time because I thought it was hilarious. These really keen observations, and I definitely get this with the narrator in Ducks. Like, it's just they're so pinpoint and precise and accurate, and it's almost like she's living as an alien in this place where, like, how else could you have such like perfectly tuned observations?
Yeah. Yeah, like alone in the world. And she references several times of like not wanting to go out, not wanting to have this dinner party, wanting to be alone.
Yeah.
And that sort of removedness seems very much part of this narration or the narrator's character. One thing, we were going to have a guest on today who had to cancel, Tom Flynn. So you can make fun of him. I'm saying this so you can openly make fun of him. But Tom Flynn from Volumes is going to come on to talk about the role that independent booksellers had played in promoting this book here in the States in particular, and that this book was available at Winter Institute in January. The galley of it had a really cool cover in which it was like, it used the fact is that blah, 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 that, and it would be like that I have to write this copy and that my publisher says that this is the greatest book ever, and the fact that I can't figure out what to write. And it was like very funny, and it was a big giant galley and got a lot of attention from booksellers there who picked it up, who wanted to read it and to promote it. And you can see at the beginning of this edition, there are quotes from James Crosley of Madison Books, Justin Wallace of Powell's, Christina Rodriguez of Deep Vellum, Stephen Sparks of Point Reyes, Josh Nice, I'm not sure, Hills and Hamlet's Bookshop, Josh Cook from Porter Square, Ida Cutler from Women and Children First, Grace Harper from Max Back's Paper Books, and Lori Feathers has a giant one from Interrobang, and she will be on later, so we can bring this back up then. But initially, my thought for today's episode would be that we could talk about that role that they played, and it sort of dovetailed with the idea that Dan said last week on the last episode, where Dwight Gardner reviewed the book and said, is this the book that nobody anticipated or nobody saw this coming? And he was like, oh no, booksellers knew it was coming. And so there's like been this very important part of like independent booksellers talking about this book and spreading the word and helping make people aware of it. We can't do that today because Tom is sick, says he can't talk and that his head hurts. So instead we have to switch gears a little bit and just go through this in maybe a more normal way, or talk about some specific things related to craft and or ideas of the book itself. So turning to you for a second for what your general observations are up through page 150, if you had anything in particular that stood out to you in this section.
I did, but before that, there was, I'm curious, like, now that more and more people are purchasing books through Amazon or something, like, I don't know where they're getting their book recommendations from, or I don't know how people buy books. Like, everybody does it a different way. But like, would this be like, what would be, since you like this, you might like Ducks Newbury. Like, what would make you get this on your radar if you're an Amazon user for buying books?
And exclusively,
you know what I mean?
I mean, it's weird because like you could try and envision an Amazon user as being someone who's disconnected from the rest of like all of book culture, but they're probably not. They're probably digital native or whatever the terms are for that. So they're probably seeing all of the different tweets or conversations or references. I mean, she was on, this is great.
Now that this book's on my radar, like, I'm seeing it absolutely everywhere right now. It's insane. But like, so like NPR, if NPR talks about it and you get some, left-leaning person that wants to stay up to date on the top 10 books or whatever, like, they're going to probably buy it on, hopefully from a local bookstore. But I mean, how many folks hear about it or see about it and decide to like pop it in on Amazon and buy it or something? Like, I don't see that pushing any sales for this. I think it has to be hand sold from people that actually care about books, like these independent bookstores.
There are so many reviews for this. I mean, the Booker Prize is the huge thing. So here's a Amazon thing. The paperback is available on Amazon for $20.66. The Kindle version is $9.99.
Okay.
So they're really going hard there. The customers who bought this have also bought the new Salman Rushdie book, Elif Shafak's 10 Minutes, 38 Seconds in the Strange World, Girl, Woman, Other, a novel, and The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. These are all like just the big books. Like these are the books that everyone's talking about that are all like in conversation right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like once you hit a certain level, and I don't think with if it weren't for the independent booksellers starting this train, the Booker Prize would have done a lot for it. The Booker Prize finalist makes it like that next level. So it's in the conversation with these other things. If that hadn't happened though, I think that it still would have gotten to a certain point thanks to all these people talking and promoting and referencing it. And there's a bit on Publishers Weekly yesterday from Ed Nowatka about how some people are teaching this book now already. Next to Infinite Jest is like this generation's Infinite Jest was the professor's quote. There's also Lucy Ellman was on the Guardian podcast, which I meant to listen to it. I didn't have a chance to before now, but this is the blurb. This is the description from the Guardian Books podcast. It says they speak to Lucy Ellman about her book. She sits down with Sean and talks about coming up with the phrase, the fact that, which links her gigantic sentences, how the role of motherhood is devalued and why she wants smell-o-vision to be introduced to novels. And with so many critics taking issue with the difficulty of Ducks Newburyport, we take a look at other novels often considered to be challenging reads. So they probably talk about every book that we have on this podcast. Or not.
I'm curious what makes this a challenging read. I don't
think it is.
I don't like it. This thing it reads like a breeze. Like it reads super fast. It's really engaging. Like you don't have to understand necessarily what's going. Like just let it wash over you. Like,
is it
the size that's difficulty? Like is that what they mean by a difficult read?
Not a reading difficult. That doesn't qualify for me. So that was one of the two questions I had for you for today.
Okay.
Or maybe three, but one was what makes this book considered difficult? Because I don't see that. Is it just a lack of punctuation? What defines a difficult book? And then the other thing was I wanted to talk, if we could, about the phrase "the fact that" and how that works in here. Because some of the things that are the fact that are opinions are like her opinions. Some of them are actual facts. Some of them we start to take as facts, which might not be facts. But it's a way of like constructing, I think. It constructs obviously the way that she's thinking as a character, but I think the way that it impacts the reader is very interesting. And it's the sort of thing that I assume you would tell someone writing in a writing class to avoid doing. And I like the idea of like how this book violates a lot of those rules. And since you know a lot of those rules, I'm curious about how it relates to like you as a teacher of writing compared to you as a reader of great literature.
Yeah, sure. Well, the first thing too with that kind of that repetition that keeps the engine churning, like the fact that I was thinking about that linked to that beginning, the proviso at the very beginning, because that's like almost an incomplete subversion of the proviso at the beginning. Yeah, it is. I can't.
This is a work of pure supposition.
Yeah, and so it's pure supposition that has the fact that 5 million times in it. So it's kind of interesting that it starts off with that and then is like laying out all these facts.
So I have two questions about that that are specific. So here is on page 134, it says they're talking about the master builder, the fact that we watched that with Stacy during her acting kick, the fact that Wally Shawn is good and he translated the master builder himself and directed it and acted in it, the fact that most people make pies just to be nice, blah, 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 blah. I looked up this up on Internet Movie Database, and according to them, he did not direct it. So that's not a fact.
Okay.
But so my question is that like part of her memory of like she might remember him having directed it, or is it just a mistake? Because then right below that, Lawrence, Kansas is misspelled, and I wondered if that was like if there's something like I assume that they're just like typos or like who cares who directed it? It doesn't matter. You're thinking in your mind. It's not important. But is it like part of this whole building blocks of like how this consciousness is made that it has those sort of slippages too, that the fact that is like a good repeating, but it doesn't mean that it's fact. It means that it's the way that she's seeing the world or relating to the world. This is also the page that references the garbage plate, which Go Rochester represent. The two things that everyone should know about Rochester are garbage plates and hyperdrive.
Yeah. Forget Frederick Douglass and Susan B.
Oh yeah, them too. Yeah.
Yeah. What have they ever done? Garbage plates. So there's a best of Rochester voting right now, and like source of Rochester pride. It's Wegmans grocery store, garbage plates. Susan B. Anthony didn't even make it.
Oh, no, she did not.
And there was Frederick Douglass and like one other thing.
Was
like,
the other thing like the high falls? Like it's just like a
I have no
waterfall?
idea, but like
Okay.
basically you get to vote between just a plate of like hamburger meat with mustard and macaroni, or Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, for anyone who's not
And
listening, or
oh my God, I hate this place, man.
for anyone who's not aware of Rochester garbage plate, a garbage plate is like mac salad with multiple hot dogs, meat sauce, fries, all together. That's all like a thing. It's very weird. It's gross. It's
It
not something I would
belongs at
recommend.
it belongs at a Buffalo Bills tailgate after you've had a carton of Labatt Blue in your
Yep.
belly. Like then the garbage plate goes in.
Then it makes sense. But yeah, so related to that, so the fact that part you were starting to say something too about
Yeah. So this whole thing with like, I don't like rules for writing necessarily, but when you're teaching people that are just beginning writing, you have to have some sort of like framework, or like there's a reason why you always have to read some Raymond Carver stories or something when you're teaching people writing, because they're just so like bare bones and plain and simple. You can kind of show like, look, there's only 2 ingredients to this sausage. Just look how it's made, okay? Like,
yeah.
And so like the whole thing with like the rules for writing is because if the writing's really bad, you just have to have, it's kind of like telling somebody they go to the doctor and like maybe they're morbidly obese, like let's get some steps in, like let's just start there, right?
Yeah.
It's just there's a myriad of things you could talk about or change or whatever, but like what are just a few small things we can do to kind of get things rolling? Like those are kind of the way I think of rules for writing or something.
Right.
And like one of them would be like, I always like the idea of to give the reader as much information about the central character as possible as early as possible. Like I think Kurt Vonnegut has like a line where like everybody needs to know what the main character wants, even if it's just like make them want something, even if it's just a glass of water. What our narrator necessarily wants, I'm not sure, but I don't care because it doesn't matter. It's completely inconsequential because it might change a little bit, but like I think right now with motherhood and meaning and
Respect.
Does what I do matter? Like you keep seeing these different, her relationship with her grandmother, her relationship with her own mother, her relationship with her daughter.
Relationship with the outside world in a lot of ways too. Like it is that like these problems or things that you could want are like, I was thinking about this morning too. I was trying to come up after Tom backed out on us of what to talk about. I'm just going to keep railing at you, Tom. You can take it. I was thinking about how there's like a hierarchy of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. There's like a hierarchy of concerns in this book. Like there's the immediate concern of getting the cinnamon rolls flattened out enough so that they don't get squished, of getting the pies made, of taking care of the kids, of like taking care of the household, of having a meaningful life at her previous job, then it gets into like the history of Ohio, and then like the current political problems, and like these like 5 massive things. And like, how can one housewife in Ohio in her kitchen, impact any one of these, or what ones can she impact, and how can she process that? She could do all that she wants for her family and for all these things, but we have, immense climate change problems going on and guns everywhere. So like, at what point are you effectual and ineffectual as a human being?
Yeah, that's why I really like the interludes with the lion teaching the cubs.
Yeah.
Because that really brings in like trying to teach them how to navigate the environment.
Yeah.
And how dangerous the environment can be for like, it's my job to make sure you grow up and thrive, but like everything's going to try to kill you. So let's look out for it. And then you look at what the world our narrator's living in. It's almost like it's so dangerous and it's so out of control. How the hell do you teach your kids to to live and thrive? Like, how do you live and thrive? Like there's this really interesting echo and parallel there that I'm just really enjoying.
Yeah, absolutely. If you got something like this in your, or not you personally, I guess, like if something like this came in, like a chunk of it to like a fiction writing workshop, how do you suspect people would react?
They'd hate it. So some folks, like I'll call them normal readers. Like obviously the folks that listen to this and you and the guests that we have on are, readers that take reading really seriously and are kind of literary citizens, but just like, you know, the average person, when they read something, like the feedback I've gotten on my work from just like an average reader is they always tell me, oh, I could really picture the characters and the setting really well. I felt like I was there.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like the highest feedback you'll get from, oh, I liked it a lot. I could really picture things and I felt like I was there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like just like living vicariously through the book.
Right. Yeah. That's like there's a whole neurological studies related to how that functions
Sure.
too.
Like I would think it has to do something with American cinematic realism. Like everything's a movie. You read the book, you play the movie in your head, kind of a thing. And like I think anybody can read this and have that same experience on a very base level. Like there's no setting description that much of, that, like it's just these concrete, like these just wonderful concrete details that like put you in a place with a feeling, and you're just letting that angst and those concerns wash over. Like I think anybody can enjoy this, but again, maybe the form is the thing that's going to make it so difficult. Is getting past the form.
I mean, getting past the form is definitely like if there's a hierarchy of difficulty, like saying it's 1,000 pages in one sentence are like difficulty level of 10 in the estimation of like your average reader. But I think like putting that aside within like the actual book, I think there is something to what you're saying that people prefer concrete descriptions and concrete things because it does trigger in your brain the same thing that happens when you read that you would experience if you were going through it. So something that's very concrete, you can picture really well. It's immersive reading. It's what you're saying. And this is that, but the settings aren't there. Instead, it's the emotion or the like description. And the fact that I think makes that is working with that and having an impact on the reader where it's creating it, making it concrete, whereas otherwise it wouldn't be. Like if she didn't use that tick, it would feel like it's just a runaway train of thoughts that you're witnessing. And that's the setting, that's the reality. The fact that sort of grounds it over every once in a while, where it's like the fact that 14,000 people get shot by guns every year. And you're like, yes, that's true. The fact that I'm in this kitchen doing this. And suddenly like you can start to build the world from her consciousness rather than feeling like you're just trapped in her consciousness. So I think it mediates that in some weird way that I'm really curious about. That's why I think it wouldn't be that difficult for readers to read, or why readers should just go for it, because it's not it's not impenetrable. There are references to things I always have to look up a lot of the acronyms because I'm acronym illiterate. And some of them are funny and jokes. And then sometimes there's people I'm just like, I don't remember who this person is right now, or if I don't know if I know this person. And sometimes they're real people, sometimes they're not real people. But other than that, like it's not a book that you should be afraid of. It's a book that you should enjoy reading.
Yeah. And I saw a tweet that was mentioning they had listened to the podcast last week, and they mentioned how wonderful it sounds when it's read out loud.
I know.
Because you read the book, just with your eyes, but when you hear it sounds so stinking good.
Yeah.
I'll just read a random section on the North American version, page 92. It just sounds really, really good. Mommy after operation, Papito by her bed. The fact that I think what they really mean about, quote, making memories is something more like going to the beach with your kids or taking your daughter to a Celine Dion concert, not just sitting around feeling queasy and eating M&Ms together. Medicare and Medicaid, Frank, Xyroscapes. The fact that all the, like, it reads so stinking good.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Here's like one of the big pet peeves or rules that I like to teach when I'm teaching young new writers is, like, you want the prose to be energetic. Like, you don't want to be slogging through the mud to try to get through a line. Like, you want it to just have like it's on concrete. It's hard and you can go fast. It can still be big and long, but like this reads with so much energy, and it's clean, and it's so nice.
Yeah, I think energy is a best word for that, because we have like writers like Sergio Shafek or Sayer to a lesser extent, whose like sentences are in, and what's that woman that came, Josephine Klugart, whose sentences and writing is like here, or in Base Trois is another good example, are like here, level, concrete, moving, and then drift into an abstraction, then kind of come back inside of the consciousness of the character, or like they intentionally make that loop or like jump away. And I think but I think the energy isn't lost in that. So like I don't know how you can fully define why the energy is not lost there or what it is that they do that other writers fail at, where they get murky. But I think energy is a great way to think about the what makes good prose good. That's energetic.
Well, again, and something that's big and difficult, or what we consider big and difficult, or that's going to be cumbersome. Like if you take a writer like Pynchon, or if they're comparing this to say Infinite Jest, you're in good hands when you read a line of Pynchon or Wallace, or when you read a line of hers. Like you can you can relax and be at ease because they are a master at what they're doing, and you don't just go along for the ride. You're in good hands. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. I totally buried the lead, by the way, on that podcast that she did on the Guardian books. So there's the whole description of smell-o-vision and all that, but the quote at the top is, quote, "I want world domination. Lucy Ellman on her Booker Behemoth Ducks Newburyport." Which, yeah, right on. Go for it. Go get it. And the other thing that I forgot was that when we mentioned Rochester and Garbage Place, on page 84, the first thing I marked in this whole section was that we read for today was Abby died not too far from where she was born. Well, 50 miles or so, but it was still Massachusetts. The fact that most people live wherever they happen to find themselves, which I think is a really interesting way to put that. That's true. Like, I mean, I grew up in a place where people lived because that's where they just happen to be. And Rochester has a bit of that feel sometimes. Well, I don't dislike it as much as I want to. That one has my favorite line too, of the fact that moms are important, even if nobody else thinks so.
Yeah,
great. The mom stuff in here is fantastic always. The mom stuff and the getting old. Like, I don't remember how old is supposed to be in here. I feel like it got referenced at some point in time, but I can't remember if I'm telling the truth about that or not. But there's a bit here where it says on 88 in the American edition, the fact that I guess I'm getting old, the fact that I should do yoga or something, Pilates, aquarobics, or eat more kale and broccoli or something, the fact that I need to get some antioxidants quick, seaweed, the fact that I used to be agile, the fact that I used to have such limber hip joints and my doctor told me I was really flexible, the fact that yoga mats are so depressing. I read that and then I pulled out my yoga mat to do my Pilates thing and I looked at it, she's right. It's just a depressing object. It's an object that contains depression.
Yeah. No, she does this interesting thing where she kind of ties these knots. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it or not, but like the way there's the echoing of mother and daughter.
Yeah.
That happen in here. And then there's the danger of males. Or men that are in here. It's mentioned with the lion urine, like beware of that smell, that's dangerous, right? Like men pissing for their territory. And then you get Trump, you get Clinton, their gaze, their view on women, especially Melania, was very interesting. The way he viewed Melania while she was pregnant is mentioned in here. So it goes back to that motherhood aspect of it.
Yeah.
It's just there's this really, and then obviously with the danger of the environment, and I think in this one it mentions a lot open carry. She keeps mentioning open carry, people that have guns, or daily carry.
What is this daily carry thing? This I was not familiar with.
Okay, so I don't know anything about guns, and I had to have some guns in a scene I was writing, and so I do my dutiful research of going to YouTube because it's full of gun nuts apparently. But there is a rabbit hole you can go down with like preppers. All right, so we all know what open carry is, right? It's the douchebag that puts on an AR-15 to go get a slushie at 7-Eleven in the states that allow you to do that. Like, awesome.
And Ohio is an open carry state?
It is. It might be. Well, you can have a concealed carry. I don't know if it's open carry like that, but I almost got in a fight at a bar with somebody when I lived in Ohio briefly, who was open carrying inside the bar. I confronted him about it. And,
that's a bad idea, dude.
Well, I was already tipsy, but I didn't like them coming with a gun on. Like, what are you doing? Like,
it is permissive open carrying.
That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story. But
Jesus Christ.
So So the daily carry is like these people are ready for like contingency plans, and so they carry with them like they'll put a display on a table of this is everything I carry. It's usually like a knife, a way to make fire, and a redundancy. So like you have a lighter, and then you also want to bring a redundancy to make fire, you know, in case you like an EMP makes it where like lights go out. I have no idea. Like, I don't even like carrying my keys with me. So they carry all this stuff like in the case of, you know, in case like shit hits the fan scenario. Like this is what happens when people grow up watching Red Dawn. Like, you know what I mean?
Designated survivor.
Like, yeah. So if you're going to conceal carry, like you should carry a tourniquet with you. So, you know, when the shooting takes place, you can put a tourniquet on someone's arm and stop the bleeding. You need to get like maps, compass, like they've got all this stuff like walking around with like, and then you can go on beyond that. There's people that they have something called a get home bag where you have a backpack, which is, so if you're at work, you need to be able to walk home and like kill zombies all the way home. So you have to have some sort of weapon, some food, so there's the get home bag. And then when you get home, you have to have your bug out bag, which is for like 3 to 4 days of survival. So like these people are insane, dude. Like they're nuts.
So we live in a world in which that is their concern, is like semi-imaginary, although people do walk around and just shoot people like fucking every day. And then we've got our character whose main concern is making sure that her cinnamon rolls don't get squished up before she goes to mail.
So there's like
the kids.
Yeah, so there's the open and conceal carry folks and all their junk. Then there's all the daily carry folks. Then there's the get home bag people, the bug out bag people. The like it's insane. I think they just like gear.
Oh yeah. I'm sure someone's marketing a lot of this stuff to them now too, in various ways. There's, as a quick update, so here's the rule about Ohio. Open carry allowed without permit. Permit required if carrying a loaded firearm in vehicle. No permit required if unloaded and in plain sight.
Okay. Well, maybe that's what this person
New York
was,
is like not allowed. New York's not allowed.
New York is like
that.
Yeah. You're going to go to jail.
Open carry of pistols and loaded long guns prohibited. Open carry of unloaded long guns allowed without permit except in New York City. So, yep. Those people terrify me. All that stuff terrifies me. But going back to
a little more like, I wouldn't say live and let live, but I was a little less like riled up about it. But now with, you know, having a kid, and it shouldn't take that, but you know, having like a young daughter and seeing stuff like that, it bothers me so much. Like I don't want my child being in this world with like people like that. Like, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, this is so there's so many good parts to this bit. But sticking with that for a second, it's like this. I thought there's a section in here where she's like, children shouldn't have to be children shouldn't have to be, it shouldn't be possible that this terrible stuff could happen to kids. Like that just shouldn't be a possible thing. And I can't find it. I don't know if I will find it. So regardless, like
I remember after the last school shooting that took place, there's a company that makes Kevlar backpacks for kids, and like they're sold out and on back order for months now. Like just stuff like that. Like what the hell?
Yeah, I mean all the gun stuff is crazy in here. So like the fact
doesn't it make sense like men were the ones that are like coming up with birth control, and like the idea of birth control is, you know, give the woman a bulletproof vest. Let's not do anything about like just think about like that's the way our world works, right? Like so this idea of like this like the dangers of like men, it's just prevalent everywhere in this text, and I'm really vibing on it.
Yeah, all the mom stuff I love. So there's like, I've got a bunch of quotes that I'll like link together about this. There's a really long one, but I'll save that for a minute. But there's the ones that end like 114. The fact that I must be the worst mom in the world. The fact that Leo says I'm a good mom, but what does he know? The fact that luckily he doesn't see me at my worst, I hope, is really important. And then followed by the fact that getting 4 whole human beings operational and up to speed, getting them to adulthood alive is a big undertaking. And then it goes into, when she gets into the gun stuff, there's this line, which really, these two that really stood out to me. The fact that this is on 132, the fact that whenever one of the kids goes over to someone's house for the first time, I ask the parents what their gun situation is. The fact that I absolutely hate doing it, but you have to. And then says a little bit about that, like it might not be as secure as they say it is. And then the fact that it's hard to believe gun ownership and gun violence are on the rise after Sandy Hook, but they are. The fact that you'd think the whole tragedy might have put some people off, but no, the whole country is awash in guns and Bible, and 7 new dead children every day. And then the last one that relates to that is the fact that I don't feel free to wander around outside the way I did when I was a kid. The fact that we don't let the kids just wander either. Like all this, like the protection and the fears of motherhood are so palpable in this section and makes so much sense.
No, I had to do that recently when we went to Indiana and visit some in-laws, because Indiana, everybody has guns in Indiana, and it's kind of an odd. It's not really odd, but like it's the fact that I have to have the fact that I have to have that conversation with. We go to somebody's house. I'm like, do you have any like guns in the house that aren't locked or anything? And I think it's okay. We had one in the nightstand. Let me go put that away. It's like, geez, it's crazy, but yeah, like you need to have that conversation with people if you have a little kid. That's the way the world is now.
Yeah, the mother stuff is great in here, especially in this particular section, especially because it relates to like Stacy, who's like she's still like Stacy doesn't like can't even stand to be in the same room with me, and then talking about her mom and what her mom did with her and like how that relationship went is like it's very smart and very, very good. And
I love the parts with the grandma as well, with the drinking beer and
not letting her have a beer and not wanting to be there and being mean to her mom and all that stuff. But then you mentioned the Clinton thing, and there's a great line on 97. The fact that they're not all Bill Clinton or Trump giving everybody French smackaroos on the mouth the first time they meet. The fact that Bill Clinton's always trying to bite women's lips. I just love that. Oh man!
And there was the line. I forget where it is because I'm using a PDF. But the mention of Clinton unable to take his eyes off of Melania at the inauguration, and is that near that part?
Yeah, I think it's the very next line. It says the fact that he couldn't take his eyes off Melania at the inauguration, even though she was wearing that blue straitjacket dress. The fact that I shouldn't be so judgmental, but I don't know if coat dresses ever really work. Dear me, what's the matter with me? The fact that being married to Bill Clinton's a whole different ballgame, that's for sure. It's so funny. And it flows so well. And the reading it, someone should make an audiobook of this if they haven't. I guess they haven't because it would have shown up when I was looking at the Amazon thing. But it would be a wonderful audiobook to listen to. It would be
fantastic.
Shit, but it would be great. Like great.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know. So there's a few things in there with the guns, the open carry part with the mother, the mom, and like a bit of her background too, related to like going to London for a year with her when her dad was over there, and like with the kids and how impossible that would be nowadays. But like somehow their parents are able to do it and get them into schools and the school experience that she had. And I think that's an interesting way of like working in these memories of her own personal past, along with the fact that there's all this gun violence stuff. Like it's very smooth and transitions very well from one to the other, especially because I think it comes right after she's like, we can't even go out for date night because we can't afford babysitters, and Stacy's the only one who can take care of anyone. And I thought, man, I know that story. I know, and I know my older daughter could take care of the kids, but she's always a little too busy with the Instagram or has quote unquote homework that requires being on Skype 24/7. Or TikTok or whatever it is the kids do these days. I don't know. But
do you think it's reading too much into the text that her husband's name is Leo, with all the talk about lion, like the mountain lions, the cubs, beware of lions, and then
and Leo the lion. She talks a lot about elephants in this section.
Yeah, but
and lions hunt. Don't lions hunt elephants? That seems like a thing.
No, nothing. Only mankind hunts the elephant.
Yeah, lions. Also, Leo sounds like Leopold Bloom, which reminds me of the Ulysses thing in that was reminded of her last time too. But the thing I was going to say is maybe reading too much into this is that she references her first poem, which that she writes that they say the hens can lay. I don't know, but they know, which was in her bio and that I read last week on the episode where it said that her first poem was this, and it's that poem which the character here said her first poem. So That's
And
kind
you
of
have to get this. You have to get that they right, or for the poem to have meaning.
yeah, you're gonna they, but they know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to include in this particular episode? Winesburg, Ohio part is super funny to me.
It's very funny. I agree.
I think most Ohio people have them read this because it says Ohio. Yeah, here, like Winesburg, Ohio. The fact that I don't know why every kid in Ohio has to read that book, but they do. The fact that I think the teachers like it, just like it because Ohio's in the title. The fact that it's all about shriveled apples. Oh my God.
Like, which they're okay, but delicious? I don't know.
Yeah. Man, there's so many.
I got a kick out of the, she mentions it 2 or 3 times in this, the all capitals Florence, y'all.
Oh, yeah.
You know what that is?
No.
So when we lived in Ohio and we were driving to Indiana, you have to drive through Kentucky. So as soon as you cross the Ohio River, past Cincinnati going south, after like 5-10 minutes, there's a giant water tower that just says Florence, y'all.
I've seen that before.
To let you know you're in the city of Florence, Kentucky. And it's just bizarre. And I'd point that out to my wife every time. Even if she was asleep, I'd wake her up. Hey, Florence, y'all. Every time we drove past it, because it's just like, where the hell are we? Why would you take the time to paint that and spend money on that? It's just it's a water tower. It just says Florence, y'all, in giant capital letters.
And now I know exactly what the image for this episode will be.
It's so good. Yeah. You can't miss it.
Oh my God, that's so funny. So I think we could probably wrap up here. I have lots of favorite lines from this section. I think the one on 103 about like the fact that I think people are just trying not to think about their mothers. The fact that I think that that's all anybody's doing most of the time all over the world. Mother Earth, the fact that everybody's either thinking about their mothers or trying not to think about their mothers, the fact that nobody ever talks about them, so on and so forth is great. As is the one about memory and learning languages in 149. But if I were to choose a favorite line from this section, I'm going with the fact that I still don't get why multiplication works. Yes. I love math. I love everything, but I love the idea of like, I still don't get why multiplication works.
Okay, I'll do 2. I'll do a serious one and a funnier one. The more serious one I really enjoyed was on 93. Hold on 1 second. My daughter's yelling at me. The fact that my daughter's yelling at me. Hold on 1 second.
The fact that I can't believe we even did that now. The fact that she can barely be in the same room with me these days, which is also can relate to kids.
She's yelling at me that she's done using the potty, so I can go in and wipe her. So let's wrap this up because
let's get this done. Okay.
All right. 93. The fact that when Stace decided to be an actress, Leo and I read the whole of King Lear with her, and the fact that it took us 3 nights sharing out the different parts, depending on which character were in the scene, and it was fun. And then she went completely off the idea of being an actress. The fact that I can't believe we even did that now. The fact that she can barely be in the same room with me these days. Victim relives attacks. Your views on North Korea. The fact that a teen shot his whole family dead right after his older sister bought herself a new Hyundai. But I don't think that was the motive or anything. The fact that parasite is on the rise, family annihilation, the fact that the man who stabbed and strangled his wife complained about having to be in jail on his birthday, the fact that the dishwasher has a collapsible bottom rack, which often collapses, the fact that I don't understand why it has to have that. It can keep going, but man, like it's just,
I love it.
So good. And then this is the funnier, I guess, line that just I had to highlight it. Page 143. The fact that I never saw any pleated clothing in a sci-fi movie, which is so true. Please do not exist in the future.
No, that whole bit is so fantastic.
Yeah.
I love
the pants I'm wearing right now have a pleat in them. And when I bought them, the guy's like, these have a pleat in them, are you sure you want a pleat? And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't care. He was like trying to shy me away. There will be no pleats in the future.
There will be no pleats in the future. God, that's the line that I love too. The fact that Leo's 3rd grade teacher is convinced octopuses have 6 legs, and from then on, Leo never trusted any of his teachers. Oh my
She
God.
is the best, man.
Book
She's
is
so good.
fantastic. So for next week, we're gonna discuss up to page 231. I believe we have a guest lined up for almost all the episodes, but we still have a few left. So if someone's listening and wants to come on and talk with us and share your own viewpoints, we are more than welcome to having you. Just get in touch with me and we'll figure it out. Otherwise, you can always download the podcast on iTunes, watch us live on YouTube. You can rate and review us at all those places. You can always find Open Letter at open_letter on Twitter or Open Letter Books on Instagram, sure, something like that. And I'm ChaiW Post across all platforms everywhere forever. And that's that. And Brian, you're at
Brian Wood _.
Perfect. And so next week to page 231. The only thing I have left to say is go Cardinals.
Boo, whatever.